Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for Doctor Stone Season 2 on Toonami. And I really enjoyed this season. Now granted, it was shorter with just like 11 episodes, but I did like how they kind of went about the Kingdom of Science versus the Tsukasa Empire. Um, though I could see that it kind of was too short to get to like character points that happen later on. But I did like how we saw different kind of technological advancements that Senku made to effectively fight the Tsukasa Empire. So we see him kind of starting off pretty much making pretty much like refrigeration slash like vacuum packed ramen for troop movements because they're going to be making movements out against the Tsukasa Empire, so they would need readily available supplies. They also kind of take captive Homura, the gymnast that was pretty much used by the Tsukasa Empire to keep tabs on them for what they were doing, and they get everything set up with pretty much the cell phone. They create pretty much what they call the Steam Gorilla, which is just pretty much their first kind of car thing that they then eventually pretty much are able to create into a tank with like carbon fiber. And I'm just like, holy fucking shit, this escalated. Now granted, that's kind of like the middle of the pack that they're trying to do, because they're trying to make sure that they do this without any bloodshed, which I like that they have for that, and they actually pretty much, I think, do a pretty good job of having the tension of like, okay, we've got a really bad situation here that could potentially lead to bloodshed, and kind of put them in that position to actually test that. I just think we needed a little bit longer and a little bit more episodes to kind of effectively hash out that tension. So they pretty much get everything kind of loaded up, and they're trying to figure out what they're going to be doing because their biggest kind of thing is to get to the Miracle Cave first and to get control of that, so that way they can help depetrify all the people in the stone statues and everything. We also get into a kind of look into how Tsukasa's empire runs. We have this like journalist woman that kind of like helps him with intel and who to revive first and whatnot. And then we got this Yo dude who's this ex-police officer who's just a dingus, and Ukyo, who is a former sub-operator who's got really good hearing, and he was kind of like the, no, granted, he does go over to Senku's side, but he is a really interesting kind of character that gives them that ultimatum of, I want you to do this without any bloodshed. Because before they kind of move out, their attempt to do it without bloodshed was to pretty much use Gin to imitate Lillian and try and be like, hey, yeah, and try and get all the Tsukasa Empire onto their side by saying, hey, the USA is okay, and Lillian's pretty much talking to you guys, and the USA will be sending stuff over, mainly to get people who have been petrified onto their side, which is actually an interesting plan. The downside is, once they find out the ruse is over, you got a lot of pissed off people at you, pretty much. Which, Taiju and Yuzuriha are able to get this Nikki chick, but the thing is, she's like an Uber fan, is able to call it like that, but she helps them get to a pretty good spot. But the thing is, they do this, but we never really get any accurate fallout from it. So that's kind of a negative that I have for this. I'm like, okay, they do this, but they don't really suffer any repercussions for trying to pretty much hoodwink all these people for it. Granted, I understand you're at war with these people and you're trying to do it without bloodshed, but if I'm told that, like, a technologically advanced from the old world had been there and would be able to help us, and then it's not. Granted, with the rate that Senku is pretty much bringing back technological marvels, he could essentially pretty much rebuild the USA. That would have been interesting. He'd be like, alright, we're going to say that we're the USA, and then goes over to the USA, rebuilds enough technological empire to at least make that lie seem more plausible. But that's not the route they go. It's like, okay, so they get some people from the Tsukasa Empire on their side, but the thing is, Ukyo is able to capture Chrome, and we have a little bit with that. I mean, I'm glad that we got to see Chrome trying to figure out an escape on his own, but he doesn't really escape on his own. Ukio's able to throw a battery in there that he's able to use to like get his way out and pretty much escape. And that was kind of like a challenge that Senku was going to have to do to, instead of going for the Miracle Cave, get Chrome out, because granted, Kingdom of Science needs scientists. Chrome is pretty much like the number 2 scientist, and I don't say that as like he's dumb or anything. It's just they are literally a Kingdom of Science that has Senku and Chrome. Now granted, there's other people that can do kind of stuff, but Senku is essentially the generalist. Like, he's got the understanding that he can get to all these different parts, but you kind of need a little bit more of those people. And then of course you got your specialists with like pretty much metallurgy and making all the different kind of things that need to go into those vastly complicated kind of things that he starts to build. So it's like, okay, you need that as much as possible. Brains are what you're going to need for the Kingdom of Science. So Chrome is able to get back out, and of course Ukio kind of is like, hey, alright, do this, but without killing anybody. So that's of course where they start setting everything up. We get a nice kind of reunion with Taiju and Yuzuriha coming and talking to Senku and getting ready to do their kind of battle bit. I like their relationship, Senku, Taiju's, and Yuzuriha's. It's just a nice kind of just friendship group that they've got. It's like, oh, okay. So, let's see here. They then decide to, of course, go and attack the Miracle Cave, and they want to use... Wait a minute, let's see. Well, they need the Miracle Cave because Senku had also given a special mission to Yuzuriha to essentially glue back all the statues that Tsukasa was breaking. And the thing is, we do get that Tsukasa is... feels immense guilt over doing this, but it's really kind of strange that he wants this kind of like stone world and everything, and then he's able to kind of switch back. It's mainly the negative of having too few episodes, I believe. Granted, I don't think it's a horrible job of what they did. I'm like, okay, I had fun. I like seeing what they were doing, but it's like, okay, you got all these different moving parts, and we needed a little bit more time for Tsukasa to have his turn that we see at the end of the season. So we have to have that in mind, because that's a big kind of bit of the Miracle Cave, because Senku has been able to pretty much piece things together, and then once you pretty much put the Miracle Fluid on, it revives them completely in their whole state. And it's like, okay, healing liquid like that. That's important, because at the end of the season, we see why we're going with the whole moniker of Dr. Stone. They're going to try and find whoever did this, and Senku wants to use this petrification as kind of like a healing thing. So we said them go to the battle for the Miracle Cave. They're able to pretty much get everybody out of there, but they're able to get control of it. But yet Hyoga and Tsukasa pop up, and the rest of the village people that they got are able to hold them off long enough for Senku to make dynamite and use paper airplanes to kind of be like, yeah, we're in a stalemate. He's like, hey, we're at a truce. Let's just not kill each other. And the thing is, they're able to be like, all right, Tsukasa, your sister was pretty much brain dead. And we see that's why he did all the fights and everything like that, to provide for her and try and get her better and all that. And it's like, all right then, let's find your sister and try and make her better. See how this Miracle Fluid would work with bringing her out of the petrification. So they kind of go on their little thing. We see Tsukasa accept those terms, and Hyoga's kind of playing like he does, but he doesn't. And Hyoga's just kind of like, alright, fine, we get that we have the late endgame villain in this season, but it's just like, alright, screw you. So they are able to find Tsukasa's sister. They use the Miracle Fluid, and she wakes up. She's fine and everything. And it's a really emotional moment, because I get that. I'm a brother. I've got a sister. I'm an older brother to a younger sister, and I get him doing that. I think we just needed, again, a little more time and some more episodes to kind of get that through, to kind of flush that out a little bit, but they didn't screw the pooch completely on it. It's like, alright, you get that this means a lot to Tsukasa. So they're pretty much getting ready to do their thing, but like, Hyoga's like, alright, he's pretty much gets ready to freaking stab Tsukasa's sister, but then of course Tsukasa takes the blow that'll pretty much kill his ass. But him and Senku tries to save him, but they both fall off this waterfall thing. Hyoga planned this out. with Homura and the Yo dude. Homura blasts the Miracle Cave, but I guess they're able to get back at it. That wasn't adequately like dealt with. It's like that's a big fucking problem, especially when you're trying to like save all the people in the world. Because Senku's thing is like, I understand that, and people are like, yeah, how are we going to feed 7 billion people? Then we're going to use 7 billion people to figure out how to feed 7 billion people. It's like, yeah, use all the brain power that you can. I liked it. I like that kind of positive spin, and granted, I can see how people are like, it kept too positive and it worked out a little bit too much in the hero's favor, and I can acknowledge that. I think that again, it's the shortness of the season that kind of does the disservice of not being able to build up as much tension and the push and pull of like losing ground and gaining ground for Senku and his cohort. Cohort, interesting. I didn't think I would be using that word. So Senku and Tsukasa are able to team up and take down Hyoga, and a pretty kind of cool thing. It's seeing them kind of get back onto the same side was actually pretty cool and pretty effective. Now he's able to kind of like get him into a position where Senku pretty much builds ye old taser that can do like 100,000 volts or whatnot and just shocks Hyoga's ass with his pinky. He's like, screw you, asshole. So Homura and Hyoga are then locked up and they're like, yeah, screw you, man. Fuck off. I don't give a shit. And then we get towards the end game scenario. Tsukasa's pretty much dying, so their idea is for Senku to freeze Tsukasa so that way they can repetrify him and heal him that way. It's like, okay, cool. And it's kind of cool to see Senku making small talk with Tsukasa and everything like that. And who would they take into space onto an alien planet if they could? And it's a nice little moment where they had been antagonistic forces, and to see them in a place where they are actually on the same side. They had differences in values and all that, but when it mattered most, they came together to defeat their common enemy. It's like, I like that message. And I like seeing it done like this, and seeing even at this end goal where we see that Tsukasa's pretty much dead, but they're able to like freeze him and they like leave him there, and Senku's built a ship, and they had pretty much gathered information from, of course, Senku's father from space to figure out where the petrification beam pretty much happened, and we see that somebody is petrified with their hand in a position that they did something. So it's like, okay, that's probably the person that they're going after to try and figure out what's going on with this. And a funny thing I liked at the end is that, yeah, Taiju's happy because he's having his first trip overseas. It's like, yeah, Lion Masters have pretty much shifted a lot, dude. But I love your gung-ho attitude. You might not be the smartest, but you're willing to learn. And that's what makes Taiju a really kind of cool and interesting character of like, yes, he doesn't always get everything, and he's really loud, and he's pretty much used as the tank of the group, but he is loyal to beyond death for Senku. And that's something that you really can't buy, and have a really hard time to showing that kind of earnestness without coming out sappy and disingenuous. And they kind of nail it here with Taiju doing his kind of stuff. And seeing pretty much them dressed up and decked out as pirates was kind of funny at the end. I'm like, all right, I thought with how they were gearing up with everything that this would have been the end for Dr. Stone, and I was pleasantly surprised. I'm like, oh, cool, they're setting up for this kind of thing. And I'm like, I hope they get another season, and I hope they do a lot of cool stuff with it. And I understand that there's probably a lot of different kind of moving parts with everything going on with, you know, the pandemic and all that. So I can understand that this might have been shortened or whatnot, and they tried to condense some things. So I give it the pause with that. And they did a good job with the voice acting, because I watched it as dub, and of course with everything having to record people from home, it worked out pretty well. So I really enjoyed this season. If you liked the first season of Dr. Stone, I think you would enjoy this as well. And it had a good amount of action and sciencey bits and character development as well, to the point where you're like, all right, cool. It also moves at a nice kind of brisk pace. And I don't know, I just really had fun with it, and I really enjoyed it. And if you're into it and into this kind of anime, I would definitely recommend it. Does get kind of violent, so again, children would be like, you know, you see somebody get stabbed through the chest. Now, granted, it's not intensely gory, but there's blood and stuff, and you're like, oh, fuck, that dude got fucking corn dogged. Ah! Yeah, so if you're not into that, okay, but that's kind of more towards the end bit. Other than that, you'd be like, alright, cool, and just learning about the processes of kind of like the things we take for granted every day, where it almost gets to the point where you think that like a cell phone or whatnot is made by almost magic, but it's like, yeah, it kind of is magic, but it's science, motherfucker, and it's cool, and you get to see all these different kind of things. And I'm like, I always kind of like that when you can have a good story, good action, and teach me something all in one go. That is a hard balance to do, and I give them props for this. So I definitely recommend this, and I can't wait to see the next season if they make it. So those are my opinions on the anime. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.